My father would have been 70 years old today. I learned a lot from him in the time that I had him. I know he would be proud and amazed at the things that I've done since he's been gone. All I can do today is the best that I can to honor him. To JD, May 29th, 1950 to June 22nd, 2017. Truth be told, I'm not sure I could really explain to the guy what a podcast was or why any of you are interested in listening to me. Truth be told, I'm not sure of that myself. And yet here we are on SCP Cafe. I'm your host, Blue Soul, SCP Wiki moderator, chat administrator, former subreddit moderator, author, loving husband, dog petter, cologne aficionado, Tottenham Hotspur supporter, Scuttle overlord, and grateful son. Today's been, a mixed bag. I have a couple of little, not quite rituals, but things I like to do on May 29th since he's been gone. This is the third year where I've had his birthday and, haven't had him to, say happy birthday to. He'd be 70 this year. That would have really bummed him out. He, when he turned 67, he said, "This is it. I'm an old man now." I was talking to him on the phone, and I said, "Oh, is this the year?" He laughed and he said, "Yeah, because it turns out that was old. His dad didn't make it that long. His dad died at 66, and he made it to 67. So, if you are interested in honoring a good man in the way that I have shortly before recording this episode, you will need a shot of Absolute vodka and a lime and a little bit of crushed ice. You can probably figure out what to do with the three of them. It's not probably going to make for the best recording I've ever done, but I really felt like it was important to get something out today. So we have a bit to catch up on, and I'm going to, after that, tell you about what's been going on today. First off, you might notice this episode sounds just a little bit different than previous efforts. I had to reload Windows on the computer that I do the recording on. Overall, that's been a thing. It's been a project. Right now, I think it sounds better than it did previously. I'm curious what you guys think, so get a hold of me. Let me know what you think. I'm not a difficult person to get a hold of. The SCP Cafe Discord is alive and well. You can still get to that from scp.cafe. Discord is one of the links at the top menu. And it's going to be picking up in activity as I have sort of committed internally to a new plan for June. May or may not do anything tomorrow or Sunday, but I do have some plans for June that involve recording 30 episodes, an episode each day. And what I'm going to do is just talk about what's been going on that day. I think one of the things that's bothered me in trying to keep up with the wiki and cafe is trying to do a week's worth of work in a couple of hours. It was probably a recipe for destruction at some point along the line. I managed to stretch it out for about 45 weeks before it hit me. But I want to try this. I've made the commitment to myself to record 30 episodes in June. And, barring any real catastrophes, I fully intend to see that out. So what I'm sort of envisioning is each episode will not be terribly long. We're looking more at probably, 15, 20 minutes instead of the, 50 to 90 that recap shows typically were. And from there, we'll kind of figure it out. I'm intrigued by the idea, and I think there's going to be some good stuff coming out of it. And one thing that I think might be useful is that we're going to see things really before any ratings hit at all, because I'm only going to be looking at stuff from the day prior. So that might be interesting. We're going to see things really before anybody else is talking about it. You're going to get, some of the earliest access around to some of these works, short of, keeping a close watch on the new Pages feed every day. Now, before I say a whole lot else, I want to talk Patreon for a few minutes and give some really deep, sincere thanks to the patrons that have stuck with me to help offset the costs of the Scuttle backup system, which is currently running me a couple $100 a month. So things aren't quite at the break-even point right now. I will be doing probably going to do a Scuttlecast on June 1st, and we'll just go over the bill and try and figure out, where some money can be saved and, what everything's going towards. But really do appreciate you guys. It is not a cost I could take right now. With the world ending, which I'm sure many of you noticed, through March and April and May, I have had to take a pay cut at work and have had my annual bonus taken away. Altogether, that's something like an $8,000 haircut for me, and that would make running Scuttle right now an impossibility. I could not extend myself in that way. So the patrons are quite literally, saving the wiki right now. All of the backups, this is still the most complete backup in existence of all of the SCP International wikis, and it is entirely thanks to you guys. So sincere thanks. If this is something that you are interested in trying to help out with, patreon.com/scpcafe, 100% of those funds goes directly into the bill to cover all of the backup stuff that's been going on since October. Very much appreciated. Could not do it without you guys. Now, it is the 29th, as you may know, unless you're a time traveler. We have just finished Phase 0 of the Exquisite Corpse contest. This is a new contest being put on by CO. And in a nutshell, people... it's almost like it's somewhere between a Secret Santa, like a white elephant thing. To join this contest, you had to write an object class, and it could be anything out of Safe, Euclid, Keter, Thaumiel, Neutralized, and Explained. And looking through the list, of which there are, I'm scrolling, 278 entries. Some of them are really straightforward. They're just a single line. It's Safe, it's Euclid. Some of them are a little more complicated. They have a strike through in the object class. Formerly Safe, now Neutralized. Formerly Keter, now Safe. Some chose to actually say formerly blah blah blah. They basically mean the same thing. And then some are really interesting, and these are the ones that I really appreciate for the ability to try and come up with something really interesting. For example, there's one here, Thaumiel reclassification to Keter pending decision of the Ethics Committee. We have one down here where there's Neutralized, but with the N in italics. There was one that really caught my eye. Here we go. Euclid will become explained on in a black box date. So those were three really interesting ones that I think people could really run with. So from here, the way the contest works is people are then having to write containment procedures for somebody else's object class, and then a description is written for someone else's object class bolted onto somebody else's containment procedures. I don't really know what the quality of these works is going to look like ultimately. I didn't see a dry run of this, so I don't know if it's going to feel really, really surreal, which, if it's too out there, it might not really make for good reading, but it might make for interesting stuff. We really don't know yet. If you are interested, it is actually not too late to join. What you would need to do is sign up to be a pinch hitter. The process to do that is linked in the Exquisite Corpse Contest Hub, which is currently the largest thing front and center on scpwiki.net. So take a look if you're interested. Since we have, just under 300 of these potentially coming our way, but I don't know what I'm going to do as far as talking about them down the road. We'll figure that out when we get there. I don't honestly recognize a good chunk of these entrants. I think there will be a ton of dropouts in this contest, but there are quite a few that I do recognize, and I would say we will end up with probably 100 entries out of this at a bare minimum. So a lot of new content coming up. And by the time you get this recording, it will have been fixed, but the link that was posted to the front page and, in the Exquisite Corpse Contest Hub was where anybody could edit ad sheets, comment on it. It's a fucking train wreck. Art is fixing it or has fixed it by the time you have by the time you hear this. But I'm looking at new sheets being made and people in the comments like, what are you guys doing? This community outreach is not sending their best today. Anyway, let's talk about the articles written on May 28th. There were 3 that survived, a tail and 2 skips. We're going to talk about the tale first, called Sunfire by Red. This was overall pretty good. A nice little immersive piece that plays a lot on looking back on memories and sort of inexplicable behavior of meteors seemingly attacking villages and such, in that the meteors would strike the earth and then sort of return from whence they came. There were a couple of points in it where I was a little confused and made some comments in the thread indicating as much, 2 to do with grammar and 1 to do with what felt like a strange comparison, talking about the meteor that was impending. The line is that it was yellow and as thick as a god's handkerchief. And I said, well, that's a really odd comparison to try to make to a meteor. And when we get, to the last line and past the little horizontal rule, we have an incident report that has it all make sense. And this is actually a tale involving SCP-007 to give the entire thing some context. So you get to read it again. It's like, oh, okay, now it all makes sense. But when you have a really bizarre sort of comparison like that to make, it throws the reader off, because it's like, were we still talking about a meteor? Like, I know we said it was square, but then you immediately said it's a square, but it's a meteor. So why are we calling it a handkerchief? And it's an opportunity where, if it's going to sound strange, have it so that it sounds strange to the character in the story as well. Give them an opportunity to express some bafflement. What is this thing? Why is it, why is it square? Why is it bright yellow? And it's, when you don't do that, the reader will usually kind of stop. They'll go back, they'll read up, a few sentences or the last paragraph again. And that's not what you want for your readers. You want it to flow nicely, and that was really the only sticking point out of this piece for me. Currently only at plus 12. Did give it an upvote despite that that little hiccup, because overall it was pretty well done, and the build up to payoff was overall very much in its favor. Now let's talk about SCP-5190, titled Footprints in a Blizzard by Tanhony, 5K winner. We have a very, very short work, which is always intriguing, because just seeing the length of it without actually getting to read it, it's like, okay, we're going to do something interesting here, because it looks overall like it's written well. And maybe that's just like deletions guy senses tingling. Usually you can just sort of glance at a short work and take in all at once whether it was intentional or a cold post. This is intentional. Now, this piece is short enough that I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. We have an object class of Keter. The procedures are a single sentence. Due to its nature, SCP-5190 is considered self-containing and thus is not subject to specific procedures. Keter but self-containing, an interesting combination. Our description is that the skip is the collective designation for an unclear but insignificant percentage of the human population who are subject to an anomalous phenomenon which influences their effect on the world around them. That's a long sentence that doesn't say a whole lot. Instances of 5190 will make little to no significant impact to the world around them throughout their lives, and any societal or environmental change they do manage to bring about will revert shortly after. All 5190 instances are subject to a minor perception filter effect, which increases the difficulty of noticing them, the strength of which increases exponentially the more other individuals are nearby. The strength of this filter, however, reduces to almost zero whenever the instance is engaging in acts that would be considered criminal or otherwise socially inappropriate. A footnote here. Note, however, that the prospect of performing these kinds of actions provokes severe anxiety in most 5190 instances. Then continues, despite what most 5190 instances believe, the majority of their personal relationships reach the level of acquaintance at best. When pressed, most individuals who know 5190 instances have described them as vaguely pleasant, but ultimately insubstantial. In 80% of interviews conducted with individuals acquainted with 5190 instances, they've had significant difficulty fully recalling details such as the instance's name and features, and in the remaining 20% they fail to remember these details altogether. Following death, memories of the 5190 instance will rapidly fade from the minds of all individuals who have encountered them. All observed cases have resulted in a complete loss of memories pertaining to the instance after a period of 3 days, save for a vague notion that the subject in question has forgotten something of little importance. An Addendum 1, due to lack of Foundation interest, further information on this anomaly is not available. End article. So, predictably, this thing has kicked off a fair bit of discussion in the comments. There are arguments to be made on both sides for me. This does a good job of trying to evoke sort of a modern horror, but I don't know if it's fair to say that it's, just bound to modern times. I think it's very much in human nature to want to be remembered. I think it's why, so many people have such existential anxiety, is this sort of fear of being forgotten. And that said, I'm not sure that this article does much to move the needle for people that were already feeling that way. It doesn't really do anything to push them to make it even worse, I suppose. There is probably room, since the article is so short, to do something like that, to really get after some particularly vulnerable readers, and really get after them mentally. But there are other people in the comments. Most of the minus ones are saying it doesn't do anything for me. We've seen this punchline before. It's fairly, one of the comments will say it's unsubtle. I don't think, subtlety or a lack thereof is all that important in a short work like this. But it is interesting to see, quick reactions, people already having very strong opinions about this piece. I feel like there's a missed opportunity here. I feel like this piece could have done more even in its short length, because we have a couple of sentences which could be trimmed, and I think you could use the words that you saved to do a little bit more to get after, the right kind of reader. So take both sides into consideration. I'm going to no vote this. That is a 0. Now, last but certainly not least, an article from Conwell, your friend and mine, one of the most valuable members we have on Wiki staff, and honestly just a great guy. SCP-5460, this is titled Often Go Awry. This was a really good piece. We have an object class of neutralized, and what we basically have is we're telling the story of about a device that we found that Anderson Robotics had been working on. And the gist of it is that this thing allows for multiple people to sort of communicate telepathically with each other. There's a single telepathic link, and it can take up to 10 people, and they can all share telepathically their thoughts up to a range of about 5 kilometers. So pretty useful. The first, there's the outside of the addenda. The article itself is pretty short. We have 2 addenda, and they make up 80% of the length. I'd have to guesstimate here. We have the first addendum is sort of a interspersed between notes from the developer, the sort of the project manager for this product, and development logs. So you can sort of see the thing taking shape over the course of about 5 years. And, it looks almost like, release notes for different, as they iterate and improve this product. Conwell being a med student, he got to really make use of some kind of gross sounding body related things that get fixed in iterations of the product. The version 1.2 release fixes an issue of pelvic splanknic synchronizations, which I don't know what that is. I don't want to know what that is, and it's probably better that I don't know what that is, because it's probably not as bad as I'm imagining it to be, or it might be worse. Which the body's fucking weird like that. So this thing takes we start from version 1.0 on April 1st, 2019, April Fool's Day, nice. And we're burning midnight oil. There's a note in here saying that it was only through her direct, intervention that this product wasn't canceled altogether. So now they're looking at like 80-hour weeks and just a ton of time spent to try and get this thing going. And they get there. See, this is these unclear date formats. It was originally January 4th, 2019, but because the first 4 or 4/1, 3/3, 12/9, 10/12, I assumed these were American dates. And nope, 28/11/2020 is the next one. Then we go on down. So November 15th, 2023. So yeah, almost what is that? Yeah, very nearly 5 years. We get there. We're moving into beta testing, and she's sending out a big congratulatory thing. Birthdays, anniversaries were missed. There was even a divorce or two. But I couldn't have asked for a better crew or a better family. Please, please, please tap into all that stocked up vacation time. You've absolutely earned it. And then we go into a second addendum, and it's titled Transcript of Surveillance Footage Captured by MTF Gamma 13. And this is a play-by-play of what looks like a one of our task forces going in and raiding the facility out in 2024. There's actually a cross-linked back to this in the very beginning of the article, which may not have been the best thing here, because for me, all of a sudden what I have to do for a skip for one of these articles, it has to stand alone. It manages that well enough, but by noting in the first sentence of the description that this was destroyed during a raid, and then we don't touch on it again until the second addendum at the very end, I would have liked to have seen a note here, just a reminder, because what happens is I get here and I'm like, why? So Gamma 13 intercepted footage? Like, it just says footage captured by, but no, we actually did raid this facility, and you've got Anderson Robotics employee sort of moving into this area where this device is held. You've got units from Gamma 13 engaging with security androids, and then we have a confrontation directly in front of and regarding SCP-5460, and it is destroyed. And just like that, we're done. Things toast. Things totally destroyed. And we have one sentence at the very end saying that this person that, did all of this stuff is still within Foundation custody and has been cooperative, providing information regarding her former employer and the entity, this headset. And it really is a punch to the gut. If you have done any sort of professional work where you spend a ton of time on something and due to stuff outside your control, it all falls apart very rapidly. I had spent no shortage of time working on any number of things in a previous job, reporting directly to the CEO, who, the thing with this job, the CEO's word was absolute law, and he changed his mind frequently. It's a really bad combination when you are trying to do something in the vein of project management. So, I felt this one. This one hurt. Really, my only knock on this piece was, as I indicated, I got confused on what exactly is going on in this second addendum. And I think just a sentence here reminding the reader of what's going on would make all the difference, but not enough to keep me from giving this a +1. And that's basically what we were up to yesterday. Tomorrow, have a couple of articles to look at: SCP-5403, SCP-5095, and a tale called "It's Fine, but It Still Hurts." So this may work out pretty well. I like how this episode went overall. I feel like I can knock these out in a pretty reasonable amount of time, and I do like being able to keep caught up with this stuff. I think that was one of the things that really bugged me when I had to, take a break, go on hiatus, however we want to call it, was feeling like I needed to go back and read everything up to a certain, to get me current. And the longer that hiatus is, the more difficult or flat out impossible with the, the amount of time you have in a day, that becomes to make happen. But I'll do what I can, keep going. So you've heard it. Keep me honest. 30 articles, 30 episodes, presumably about articles, in June. Some about articles, some about Scuttle. I suspect we'll have a couple of quiet days where there's not much to talk about, and we'll talk about Scuttle and other nerdy stuff that's going on. We're doing some work on the Wikidot code base to see what we can do to, bring it into the 20th century. So some of that stuff will be interesting, at least for me. May not be interesting to people that aren't complete nerds, and I apologize. I'll try and get something on the cover, or something to indicate that these are that particular episode is going to be mostly nerd stuff. We actually have a nerd stuff channel on Cafe Discord, and so it might be, I might just call them nerd stuff. Maybe that'll work. So we're going to leave it there for the day. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for those of you that have, stuck around, kept sending me words of encouragement. Really appreciate it. And let's keep it rolling. Let's hope to see some light at the end of this tunnel. With fucking everything, man. The world has not been a great place to to be, generally speaking. So let's try not to worry about it too much. Let's focus on this. Let's focus on this little community and trying to make some good articles that get people feeling a certain kind of way. So I will see you guys pretty soon. Keep reading, keep writing, and goodbye, fellow kids.